Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Dovid Orlofsky Show. Episode number 80. Oh my goodness. Every now and then somebody discovers the Rabbi Orlofsky Show and they start from the beginning. Well, 80 hours. 80 half hours. That's 40 hours. 40 hours of your listening pleasure. Boy, I think I'm going to go back to the beginning and re-listen to all of them just so I can... It's basically the best thing out there. I mean, when I had the podcast with Rabbi Lieberman last week, so somebody, he asked me afterwards, he says, what did you think? And I said, I would listen to it. That's a big level. If I would listen to it, that's my acid test. Because when I speak someplace, people tell me, oh, it's so nice listening to you. And I said, listen, I have spoken publicly and I have listened to public shiurim. And I can tell you it's much harder to listen than it is to speak, because I almost never fall asleep when I'm speaking. Sometimes but for the most part not. And whereas when you're listening, some speakers, they a little lilt in their voice. So if I can listen to it, that's always So I said to someone once, it's not that I'm such a good speaker, I'm just such a bad listener. Yeah. So welcome on board once again at the 80th show, whether you're listening on TorahAnytime.com or wherever you listen or watch your podcast. We're happy to have you along. And a few audience shout outs. You may not be aware of the fact that we have a studio audience. We want to give a mazel tov to Laser and Dvorah Cohen, two of our regulars who had a baby girl. Otherwise, I'm sure they would be here. It's not if they had a baby boy, they would be here. But the baby girl, it's more attention, I guess. I don't know. And Yaakov Shlomo Grushinsky, one of our regulars, comes all the time. Just turned 19. He's out on his birthday. Should be a wonderful time. Should be a great year. And it's basically the last year before, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides you're no good, he decides to zap you at the age of 20. Anyway. But don't think about that. When I was a magician, I used to buy these book of magician jokes, They were called patter, just to keep, the audience a little slightly off balance so that you can, slip somebody's watch in your pocket or whatever. But one of these lines is, the guy tells, a really funny joke, and everyone says, yeah, we're having a great time. Who knows? Right now, your house could be burning down. And it always makes people uncomfortable when you say something like that. So anyway... So that's the story. I don't know if, I hope everyone's feeling well. I'm pretty sure the coronavirus can't be spread through the internet. Although I had a virus on my computer, but I don't think it was the coronavirus. Good to know. Anyway, okay. It's almost Purim. By the way, I have my mug back, the Rabbi Orlofsky Show mug. Somebody asked me, when are we going to start selling merch? Evidently, that's a cool term for merchandise. Yeah, that we're going to make available. And in fact, somebody wanted to give the Rabbi Orlofsky Show mug to their children. And we're going to have to get started on that because almost everything that I have was made by other people. So, but we're going to start looking into this. We have a lot of stuff to do. I might end up publishing my book that way and then offering it out. I wrote a book some years ago. It was called The Last Book You Read Before You Was Sunlight. I just never published it. I've been meaning to. It was 30 years ago. I'm going to get around to it. But I basically was asked to write a book about Judaism for people who don't want to read a book about Judaism. People are just not that motivated. So this is a brilliant introduction, laugh out loud, funny, and I just have to finish it, But I've really have at the top of my list to deal with my procrastination. I just haven't gotten around to it. Anyway, so I want to share something that has bothered me for a long time, and that is the tension that exists between whether or not one can say HaKadosh Baruch Hu meant for this to happen or not. Now, there's a lot of different levels to work on this. But But there's one particular one, because I remember somebody wrote a letter once to the editor of a particular Jewish periodical. I don't remember if it was a newspaper or magazine, it was so long ago. And he quoted the Or HaKadosh, which says that Yosef was thrown into the pit of snakes and scorpions, and the reason he survived is because he's a tzaddik. But it could be that if you put yourself in a makom sakana, just the fact that you're in a makom sakana is enough that nature will take control of you. And therefore, if people get killed in a natural disaster, now listen, people die all the time. Yeah. I heard Moshe Shapiro speak about this once, and he said, it's not so simple, because a lot of it has to do with your approach to life. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Midah Keneged Midah. He will run your world, the world that you want. People don't always understand this. If you lock yourself in a room and you don't come out, and people knock on the door and they say, come out, and you say no, don't complain that you're lonely. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why did you make me so lonely? You can't pin that one on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's not God's fault. That's because you decided to live inside of a world that's closed off from other people. That's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's your choice. And very often we choose certain existences and then we complain about them. I'll give you an example. When I was back in Chavetz Chaim, the Rosh Yeshiva was in great demand. He was a very hands-on Rosh Yeshiva, and he was, spent a lot of time with his Bachrim, but certain people were more assertive than others. I remember one time I had an important shaila, and my friend Rabbi Yaakov Ber, who was very close to Rabbi Yoshev Zatzal, brought me in to ask the shaila, and it was a mob scene, a lot of chashva people, etc. And I didn't know how to get ahead of the line or get into the line. He only had a certain amount of time that he saw people. And Rabbi Yaakov Ber said to me, Dovid, do you know what your problem is? You don't have any elbows. You have to elbow your way in. And he was a master at that. One time he comes to see Rabbi Yoshev, and Rabbi Yoshev says to him, there's nobody came today. He says, well, the gate is locked. He says, what did you do? He says, I climbed over it. Rabbi Yoshev said, good for you. They need elbows. I'm not so good at it. Anyway, so a guy I knew in Yeshiva, he says to me, I think I'm going to kill myself. I said, why? He says, I don't know any other way to get an appointment with the Rosh Yeshiva. Yeah. Okay. So people go to the Rosh Yeshiva and they go to ask Eitzah, ask a Shaila, whatever word you want to use. And they say, I'm getting on in years. I'm 22, I'm 23, I'm 24. I really think I should get married. And I feel lonely, and I feel like it's time for me to move on with my life. And it gives all these explanations. So Rosh Yeshiva says, okay, then you should start dating. And the guy comes out and says, I don't know what to do. The Rosh Yeshiva told me I should start dating. I don't know if I'm ready to get married. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? You created a reality, and then you pretend that this is not the reality that I want to live in. Yeah. Sometimes you see people, and they say, you think I need all this? You think I need the big house and the expensive clothes and that? I don't need any of this. I always think, well, you have it, and I don't think it just fell out of Shemayim, and someone put a gun to your head and said, you're going to live here, There was a series of choices that went into making that happen, I'm reaching the age where I'm old enough that my house is slowly going to collapse down around me. When you go into old people's houses, everything's deteriorating. I'm one step away from having that old house smell, when you come in. My grandmother had one of those hats with the little bingo chips all over it, And I'm one step away. If I ever lose some weight, I'm going to get myself one of those big sweaters that just sort of hangs on you and you can wander around like this from room to room. What's going on? What are you doing here? So one of my son-in-laws who's in construction, he says, well, why don't we redo the house? Why don't we rip it all apart and put it back together? And I was like, what's the point? My grandchildren are just going to trash the place. We went out and bought new couches and they just literally ripped them apart. They kept tearing it until they ripped the stuffing out. I was like, forget it. What's the point? I'm just going to die here. In a hellhole full of rubble. And then when they sell the apartment, people will come in, first thing they do is trash the whole place, and rip it all down and rebuild it, I still have balatot on the floor, in Israel they have those, it used to be every place had balatot. I didn't even know the name of it until I went to buy my apartment. It was an American builder, and he says, it comes with terrazzo floors. And I thought, wow, terrazzo floors. It's balatot. That's the fancy name for balatot. It's terrazzo, yeah. So you live within the reality that you choose to live in. So it says with Moshe, the Or HaKodesh is talking about is someone who chooses to live within Teva. And if you choose to live within Teva, then that is the world you're going to live. Masha Ein Kain. If a person chooses to live a life of hashgacha pratis, where Kodesh Baruch Hu is involved in my life, then the Kodesh Baruch Hu will be involved in every aspect of your life. And he used to very often quote Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, who said that even a thief who's breaking into a home to rob it, if he has bitochen that he's going to be successful, he'll be successful. If he trusts that Kodesh Baruch Hu, which means there's a natural way that the world orders. And if you choose to live outside of the normal parameters of the world, you're not limited by it. You can live l'malam min teva. If you choose to live within inside teva. So he didn't bring this example, but it's a famous example, right? When it comes to Shemitah, so it tells you, do not plow, do not plant, do not harvest. Yeah. And if you ask, what am I going to eat? I haven't plowed and I haven't planted, I haven't harvested. I will send a triple blessing to you in the 6th year, so you'll have enough food for the 6th year, for the 7th year, and for the 8th year until your new crops come in. Ask this for no. That's a very strange way to describe it. And if you'll ask, what am I going to eat? So I'll send you a triple crop. What if I don't ask? Ich bin a tomim. And Kodesh Baruch Hu said, don't plant, don't plow. I didn't plant, I didn't plow. So what am I going to eat? What if I don't ask the question? Says the Sforno, you won't get the triple crop. So what will I eat? No. You'll do 1 year of harvest, and that food will be enough for 3 years. How? Wonders of wonders and miracles, God took a farmer by the hand, right? Kodesh Baruch Hu will make it work out. He's good that way, yeah? So you have one guy who's nervous. He's a nervous guy. And he says, Shemitah's coming, what am I going to eat? I didn't save up enough food, I'm really nervous, etc., etc. He goes out in the 6th year, miracle, he's got a triple crop. Now he's got to work 3 times as hard. He's got to harvest, and he has to thresh, and he has to winnow, and he has to, store it up and bake the. He builds 2 more silos, so he has enough for 3 years. And when he's all done, he feels great. And his neighbor has the same amount that he always has. Yeah. He says, "What are you going to do?" He says, "I don't know." He says, "Aren't you nervous?" "No, I'm not nervous. I don't have to worry. Kodesh Baruch Hu told me, don't plow, don't plant, don't harvest. What's going to be? I don't know what's going to be." I assume HaKadosh Baruch Hu has worked this out. He knows what he's doing. So if you're not sure, so you're going to have to work very hard in order to be able to have that sense of security that it's there. I want it there. An older Israeli said to me, I don't know what it is with young couples today. He says, they want to have an apartment, but you have to buy them an apartment, but it has to be a 3-bedroom apartment. So 1-bedroom apartment, what am I going to do with that? He says, in my day, they bought you a 1-bedroom apartment, you were happy. What will happen when the family grows? We'll worry about it then. But I have to have everything right now? Rav Shach went to see Rabbi Yoshev's home. I don't know if you ever saw Rabbi Yoshev's home. It was not very large. It was, in fact, very small. And Rav Shach, who did not live in a palace himself, he says, how did you raise all these children here? He says, what do you mean? I married R Levin's daughter. He says, when we made the shidduch, R Levin said, and I'm going to provide the apartment. And we all thought, R Levin's going to provide the apartment? R Levin doesn't have 2 dimes to rub together, 2 grush to rub together. He's going to get an apartment. So comes the day of the wedding, and I say, listen, I have to move my stuff in. He says, no problem. I'm going to take care of it right now. He goes down to the hardware store and he buys a rope and 2 hooks. And in the middle of the house, he hangs up a curtain. And he says, this side will be for me, Mama, and the Kinderlach. And you and your Rebbitzin will have the other side. He says, and that's how I lived. Until the second daughter got engaged and he promised her an apartment. And then I said, I'm moving on. So this is really very spacious. Because I need it now. I have to have everything. It's a scary reality, but you want to have enough money to make so you're secure. That's really hard if you get a catastrophic illness. I knew a fellow who was on a medication that cost $1,000 a pill. Yeah, and where do you get the money? The money. You burn through your savings because somebody gets sick. You have enough money to cover that. I don't know, when do you have enough? When do you have enough? It's a pretty scary reality. So, but if you're going to be nervous, you'll never have enough. There's never enough. If you choose to live, and I cannot tell you how many times I met Israelis. They marry off their kids. They promise them apartments. I said, how do you do it? She says, I can't tell you. I can tell you it's not derech hateva. I don't make enough money to be able to do it. I don't know how I did it. Kosh Baruch Hu suddenly sends money from here, money from there. I don't know how. It's an amazing thing. But there are other people who are not so worried. Certain people get married and they say, I want it up front. Want to hear a terrible story? Sure you do. That's why you watch this podcast. All the terrible stories I share, yeah? A friend of mine had a fellow who was successful in business, and he asked him if he could borrow money. So he said, sure, I trust you for it, but my high. He says, all my money is right now tied up in deals and in real estate. I can't liquidate anything right now. And when my daughter got married, I promised them an apartment. So I knew that until I sell something or a deal comes through, I don't have cash right now. So I'm paying their rent in a very nice apartment. And I got a hazmana to Beis Din from my son-in-law. He's going to sue me for the apartment that I promised him. So I'm borrowing money. I'll buy him an apartment right next to his parents. And goodbye. You want to take me to Beis Din? You going to sue me because I didn't get my apartment? I need it. So you want to live in that kind of a world. That's the world you're going to live in. The Purim story comes about because of Amalek. Amalek has the same numerical value as the word safek, doubt. Because where does Amalek appear on the stage of world history? Immediately after the Jewish people say, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Is God really with us or not? Safek. Maybe God's abandoned us. Maybe God's not there for us anymore. Maybe he's not taking care of us. And that's where Amalek comes from. Amalek comes from that sense of doubt. Maybe God doesn't care about us anymore. The Gemara in Megillah says, what instigated the Purim story? The Jewish people came to Yechezkel Hanavi, Ezekiel, and he says to him, do we still have to keep the Torah? If a husband divorces his wife, does she still owe him anything? And that's what happened. We had a home, the Beis HaMikdash, where we lived together as Ish and Isha, as man and woman. And now God destroyed our home and sent us away. He divorced us. So we still don't owe anything to God. We're on our own. God has abandoned us. Reb Tzadok HaKohen points out it's interesting that all of the Gemaras that discuss the Churban, not all of them, but the main Gemaras that discuss the Churban, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, is in Gemara Gittin. Divorce. That's how we felt. God has abandoned us. God has sent us away. Comes along Haman from Amalek and says, I'm going to destroy them because they're not with HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. Because we're filled with doubts. Because we're not sure. Yeah. And that happens, that's when Amalek comes. Amalek's source of power comes from our lack of sensibility that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. And when we decide, I'm on my own, life is absurd. Look for the best, expect the worst. The world's a play, we're unrehearsed. No way of knowing which way it's going. Look for the best, expect the worst. It's random. And this, if you want to trace this back to its source, Cain brings a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he brings an offering that he knows is no good. He either brings flax seeds. The lashon is mashe ba b'yadai. He scooped up something and brought it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He didn't bring him the best. And he said, why should I pick out the best? You don't run the world fair. It's unfair. I'm the older brother. Back then you had to marry your sister. There was nobody else. You could marry your mother, but she was already married, yeah? So you marry your sister. So Cain was born with one sister. Hevel, his brother, yeah, he was born with two sisters. So Hevel was able to populate the world. He had twice as good a possibility. So he says, you're not fair. So he brings his offering to indicate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not fair because you run the world random. So you run the world random, so I'm going to bring you a random offering. I'm just going to scoop up something and say, here you go. I'm not going to choose it because you don't choose how things work in this world. This world is absurd. Not fair. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Hevel's korban and not Cain's, and Cain got very upset. And he says, what are you upset for? You know why I didn't take it. It's not fair. That's the problem when you have a very narrow position. When you see world through a very small window. When you open up the world a little bit and you can see more. There used to be this unbelievable book called Zoom. It was so fantastic. You look inside and you see like a little boy and a little girl. And then zoom, the next picture pulls out and you see they're inside a little house. And then zoom, you realize that the house is like a little farm. And then you zoom and you see there's a little girl playing with them. It's a toy. And then you zoom and the girl is the cover of a magazine. Then you zoom and the magazine is being held by this person lying in a Chase lounge. And then you zoom and that's an ad that's on the back of a bus. And then you zoom and the bus is on a little TV. And you zoom and you see some guy watching the TV. You know, I keep zooming until finally you reach outer space. And when you're looking at a particular detail, this doesn't make sense to you. So you say, well, things didn't go my way. It must be the universe is random. The world's not random. We just don't always see the full picture. Because there's details. There's little waves. Rabbi Findel, so sein gesund und stark. We were talking once, and then I had to go give a shiur, and I basically said over everything that he said. So he was amazed, and he says, now I see how you prepare a shiur. You just listen in on other people's conversations. 100%. It's what I've done for years. Anyway, I'm walking through my building, and I see these two guys staring, like nose up to this painting. They're staring. And I slowed down and I said, I got some material here. Let me listen in. And one guy says to the other, you see, Shlomi, when you look really close, all you see is little paint strokes. You want to see a masterpiece, you have to stand back and see the masterpiece. But if you go all the way in, I don't know how computer graphics work today, but when I was much younger and they'd have these computer graphics, they're basically a collection of dots. So you could enlarge the picture. And there were people who would keep enlarging the picture until they were just dots. That's what it was. So if you're looking at a dot, you say, doesn't look like a kitten to me. Of course not. You have to zoom out a little bit and get a little bit more of a perspective. And so we look at a situation, we say, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Is HaKadosh Baruch Hu really with us or not? Does he care about us? Amalek traveled hundreds of miles in a forced march so they could appear to bump into us. Mikra, an accident. Korach b'derech, says Rashi. Loshen mikra. We just bumped into them. Oh, look who's here. They made it look like it was an accident, but it was well planned out in advance. Korach b'derech. Rashi brings 3 pshatim. Korach b'derech, loshen korah v'chom. They cooled you off. And that's what Amalek does, cool us off. You know why? Because if we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there with us. I don't know what the source is. It's a famous old thing where this guy is walking along the beach and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, you always said you'd be there for me. My wife died and I'm walking along the beach and you're not there. Because I look down at the sand and I only see one set of footprints. And God says, I am there. The footprints you see are mine. I'm carrying you. We don't see it. And so we're left with this sense of maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu has forgotten about me or has abandoned me. I've had many wonderful people over the years who have worried about the fact that I've lost all my jobs and I don't get so many speaking opportunities as I used to. Basically, it's just this podcast. This is all I do, is I just sit here for an entire week. And then every half hour the camera goes on and I talk, and then I just sit here and I don't do anything else. But, so people have ideas. You should advertise. You should this. You should do that. And I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows who I am. He knows where I live. He knows what I need. My file is open on his desk. You don't have to worry. He hasn't forgotten about me. I would like to see things go my way, but that doesn't mean because I don't see it, he's not there. I used to give this example. People say, well, bad things happen to people. That proves that God's not there. So I said, that's a little illogical. I said, that's like saying, your mother says, clean up your room. You say, well, the problem is, Mom, that I don't know if you exist. Then your mother gives you a smack. Boom! And you say, now I know you don't exist, because if I had a mother, she'd never hit me. That doesn't prove non-existence. That might just prove you don't like her. There's no guarantee that everything's going to go your way. But that doesn't mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu isn't watching over us. And if history has taught us one thing, he more or less knows what he's doing. I tell this story, I must have told it on the podcast before because I tell it all the time. Someone told it to me, I got such tremendous chizuk, and I always share it with other people. Yeah. Rabbi Yitzchak Baditchev was walking with his Hasidim, and he said, if I was a Kodesh Baruch Hu, you know what I would do? And they said, what, Rebbe? He says, just what he's doing now. Why, you think I'm smarter than him? And everyone laughed because, we're sure we're smarter than God. We're sure. If I was in charge, I'd fix this place up. First thing, death penalty for double parking. No question about it. We're sure we know it better. And the older I get, the more I realize I really don't know what I'm doing. Kush Baruch Hu knows everything. Machshvos liba l'dor v'dor. He understands everything. And the whole Purim story is you never understood what was happening. It wasn't until the very end that you finally understand the story. But until that point, even before Haman becomes raised up to his position, Esther tells Achashverosh that Mordechai saved his life by figuring out what Bigsan and Seresh were planning against him. And that got written into the book, and that's it. Now the whole story's already over, but nobody knows it. Because we're waiting for that card to be played. Aha. Elementary, my dear Watson. But you don't know that that's going to happen. You don't see how things are going. And you're sure you know the story. I know what's going to happen. Look at those gallows. Yeah, Mordechai is going to be hanged on the gallows. Haman is going to destroy the entire Jewish people. I know how this ends. Or do you? Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Which is why the holiday of Schoik is Purim. Simcha is Sukkot, but Purim is Schoik. Laughter. You know when you laugh? At the unexpected. A man walks into a bar, orders a drink. Not very funny. A man walks into a bar, says, ouch. It's also not very funny, but at least it's a joke, because you thought he walked into a bar. He didn't. He walked into an actual bar. Bam! Two men walked into a bar. You think one of them would have seen it. Bam! That's what humor is based on. Humor is based on the unexpected. I one time rented a car. It had satellite radio. And it has this like comedy channel on it, you know. So this guy says, I was working construction on a high-rise building. And the guy next to me says, I've had enough. I'm throwing myself to my death. And he throws himself overboard. Unbeknownst to him, Jack's trampoline store was having a going out of business sale. He falls, hits the trampoline, jumps all the way back up to the sky, just where I am, looks at me and says, your jokes are ridiculously far-fetched. That was so brilliant because there's no way you saw that coming. There's no way. Yeah? And then you have to laugh because it's so unexpected. Yeah. The whole Purim story was unexpected. That's why we laugh. Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu never abandons the Jewish people. He's always with us. Sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't. But as the poem that was found from the little girl at Auschwitz said, I believe in the sun even when I don't see it shining, and I believe in God even when I don't see his goodness. So, like I've said in the past, I met somebody who was unhappy and I said, cheer up, things could be worse. He cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. So we go into Parashat Zocha, and you have to remember one thing. Amalek can do whatever they want. Their power comes from Suffolk. If they can get you to doubt, they can get you to suspect, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu em ayin, is God really with us or not? That's where their power lies. And if we say, you're nothing, me and a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, man, like this, two of us, we're in this together, yeah, then you can withstand anything. Things will not always go your way because I got news for you. You don't understand everything. You're looking at the brush stroke. You see the little boy and girl and you don't understand that they are a toy that's being played with a girl on a magazine cover on the back of a bus that's on a TV that somebody's watching. You know what I mean? You don't understand. You don't see the whole picture. But the HaKadosh Baruch Hu never forgets us. And in the end, it's all going to be good. Everything will be good in the end. It's going to be a happy ending. Yeah? It might be a somewhat difficult journey to get there, but get there we will. And that's why if there's 2 months of Adar, you put Purim in the second Adar. Why? Be somech geula legeula. The geula of Purim to the geula of Pesach. Because first, you have to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu has never abandoned you. And when you can integrate that concept, then you can have the real geula. That's it If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit RabbiOrlofsky.com, where you can add comments, see my upcoming event schedule, contact me directly. You can join the online shiurim, RabbiOrlofsky.com/live. We've got Mesilas Yesharim and Daf Yomi. You can be a part of that if you want to sponsor an episode, RabbiOrlofsky.com/sponsor. And we're going to have some more opportunities because starting March 14th, we're going to be beginning our twice a week episodes in preparation for Pesach. It's part of the Rabbi Orlofsky Pesach program. I had such a brilliant idea this year because, even in Israel, Pesach finishes on Wednesday night, so to change everything over and make Shabbos kind of difficult. So I was going to make a post-Pesach program and go away for that Shabbos. I thought that would be a lot of fun, and I thought of it too late. But if there's a sudden outpouring of people who want to do that, so then I'll see if we can find a place and we can throw that together really quickly. But boy, would that be fun. Who wants to make Pesach afterwards? And I'll even have a special Shlisel Challah section. We can all make your ki challahs. Yeah? Which is a segula for long life. Ki heim chayenu. Ki challah. Anyway, that's it for this week. I'm Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.